my friends. Thank you for being patient with me. I know it's been a month, and that's about 3 weeks too long for our this next video concerning healing, and possibly a bit more. I'd like to maybe finish up with the healing discussion and move on to a little bit of premonition and the power of spirit working in that way for us, with us. Yes, I've been dealing with some, like we all have, life stuff, and that seems to be now sort of under control, and so I'm really starting to feel we can start to move forward with doing more of these on a more regular basis. So the continuation of of healing, and the last video I know we were discussing about the many different ways of healing, the attunement time, the desire for us to give healing to people, the wanting to be of service for others, and for all the right reasons, and yet there are limitations. There are things that we don't know about with someone's life, and why healing responds for or works with someone and they respond well, and for someone not at all. And these are age-old questions, and the best way I can put this into perspective for you is, most doctors, modern day doctors, will say that there's 80% that respond to some type of therapy that they have for a particular illness or condition, and then within those there's a 20% that never respond. And Harry Edwards, who I think I've mentioned before, the great healer out of spiritualism from the 1930s right up into the 1970s, more or less said the same thing. He said there's about 80% who respond to the healing intercession from the spirit world, and 20% that don't. And out of the 80%, there's another 20% that seem to get miraculous cures. So it's real. There's something about why, and I don't have all the answers to that. I don't think anyone really does. But I think from a spiritual point of view, we cannot discount karma, soul path, what the soul has decided that it's going to experience in this life, and how that will work with them. I had a very, very bad motorcycle accident when I was 18. First and last time on a motorcycle. Right? I've been dealing with it for 40 years. And so it gives my age away beautifully, doesn't it? And I could have died in that accident. And that's really the point I was getting at. I didn't, because I was wearing a helmet. And I wore the helmet because of an impression that was given to me. The other impression that was given to me, and this is the worst part, was don't get on the bike. And I still got on the bike. But I was 18, going through a very, very rough time. Parents had died, etc., etc. Ugly stepmother, da-da-da-da-da. Just, when you're when you're cycling low on emotionally, you don't really always listen well or respond in the best way. And I just got on the bike, and it happened the way it did. But as I was in the middle of the accident, and I actually went off a cliff and was tumbling head over heels in the air, and I was looking up into the big, beautiful blue sky, and I said to God and the spirit world, I'm not ready to go. I've got stuff to do. And it was that thought in that moment that really changed my attitude. I'm not going to say the outcome, but certainly my attitude about what my next steps would be after this accident happened. So the point of that, if it's not clear, is timing is everything. And there are times when we can exit. It's true. And there are times when we can extend it. And a lot of it has to do with how we are thinking and what we feel about our purpose within ourselves. And I've seen that happen. I know a very good medium years ago. She was 68 and she was having health issues. And she was excellent healer too, by the way. Doesn't matter. By the way, being in healing doesn't mean that you're always going to be healthy and not to have your own issues, because it's not your physical form through which the healing is working. It's working through your spirit body, and if your spirit body and mind are healthy, the flow will still be there even if you're sick. And I've seen that happen many, many a time. And great cures come through healers who they themselves were not of their own healthiest part of their lives. So never think that if you are dealing with conditions that healing cannot work through you. Oh yes, it can. That's the biggest lie, because we're talking about the spirit, the health of your spirit, not necessarily the health of your body. Okay, so these things can happen in multiple ways. So just as an example to do with some healing, and I may have mentioned this once before, but I'm going to try and tell the story as quickly as I can, and hopefully I'm not repeating myself and becoming one of those people as we get older. You know, we like to tell our stories over and over again. Years ago, I was a childcare worker. I was working with a boy who was autistic. We were doing horse therapy at a particular place out here in Vancouver, up the valley, Valley Therapeutic, actually. And beautiful September evening, about 5 o'clock, sun going down, sun's behind us. So the light is, as we're walking towards the barn, the light of the sun is coming from behind us. And I always say that because it was a little bit important to what happened. There's, of course, other people receiving therapy. And on this particular evening was mostly other autistic kids. And when the autistic kids go out with the horses, there's the main walker, the therapist, and another walker who walks right beside the child who's on the saddle, on the horse. So there's about 3 or 4 people, depending on the need for the child, but it's all about safety and being careful. And of course, these horses are older as well, so they're not as likely to be excited. As we were headed towards the main barn, coming out from behind that barn, just finishing up his ride, was a young man on horseback with the group that I described with him. And in front of me, in the most beautiful light that I can describe, it was just glorious. The soft, beautiful white light was all around the horse, was all around the therapist and the walkers, and of course the child on the horse. It literally, if the horse was here, it was like this bubble of light. It was gorgeous, and felt it right away. And I looked up, and as I'm looking into this scene, up on the left hand side, of the boy was a nun. On the right hand side was a monk, and I kid you not, the main therapist who was walking beside the boy and was now looking up at the boy, talking to him from the spirit world, was a therapist in spirit, and that therapist was talking into the therapist here in the physical form, like this, into the ear of the therapist. There was nothing but complete harmony. It was absolutely stunning. So I'm watching this thinking, oh, how do I say this? How do I tell the mom? Because I realized the mom was walking with them. So I got into the barn. I was getting my boy ready, and they come in with horse, child, all, because they have to come to the ramp, and they get the child off on the ramp. And I see the mom standing there, and so I just walked up to her and I said, he had a fantastic day, didn't he? And she looked at me and she just about burst into tears. Right? This is the beauty of the story. Oh, she said, oh, you have no idea. She said, he has been rejected by every horse, because when he got on all the horses, he would kick and scream, and the horses didn't like him, where it was all uncomfortable. And she said, last week we left, and I was told that they only had one more horse that they could possibly try with this child. And I prayed all week. This is what she said to me. I prayed all week to God, to everybody, to please help him, bring him help. And I looked at her and I said, well, I think you had a miracle today. Now, I didn't tell her all the details, because you never quite know, what you're stepping into. And also the fact was, I didn't have a lot of time because I had to go with my kid who was getting on his horse and leaving. But what that experience proved to me yet again is our prayers and thoughts are heard. There's no doubt. And particularly when they come with intentional emotion. And when it's almost a plea from the soul. we may not get the healing that we want. The boy was still autistic, but in that moment, and from that point on, apparently, and for quite a while, from what I understood from the stories I heard, he did very, very well with the horses, and in many ways he did improve as the person that he was. Whether the autism overall sort of curved a bit as some of the extreme behaviors that he was having there and other places just seemed the edge came off. They can't always cure us, and I think a lot of the times they're not supposed to, because we have an experience that we've chosen to have, and that even goes for the autistic boy. But they can do quite a bit. And if we as individual beings, spirit beings, work with our spirit, mind, and body, our spirit cells, and the refinement and improvement within ourselves, we gain, I believe, in fact, I'll say I know, levels of communication with the spirit world that we would not normally have on a regular basis. And I want to make that very clearly when I say regular basis, because you can have it once in a while and it will happen for you. But to be consistent with it means that you as an individual must change your behavior sometimes. And a lot of people don't like that. Oh, that's judgment because I am who I am. Well, no, being nasty and ugly to people is something that needs to be refined and changed. In one of my videos, I believe the last one, I was talking about love and forgiveness, or certainly a few of them before, the two greatest lessons that all of us have to learn. There are no greater lessons, none. Love and forgiveness, and that was given to me in a trance state where it was said so clearly to me and through me. Forgiveness, and I'll never forget this after I heard it said back to me. It was just one of those worms that stays with you, right? Forgiveness is the greatest karmic release that one can give to oneself or to another. People talk about freedom and healing, then you need to learn to forgive. And you need to learn to forgive others. You need to learn to forgive yourself. And the biggie is you need to have the humility in your own consciousness to ask for forgiveness from those that you have hurt, either knowingly or unknowingly. What a beautiful thought. Now that's real consideration for others. That's real empathy for others. Not the pseudo, oh, I feel everything, so that makes me special. No. No. That's still working on the level of a narcissist. But when you can sit down with yourself and say, you know what? Taking full responsibility for myself means this. Forgiving yourself, forgiving others, and then asking for forgiveness for what you know you've done, or maybe what you have done not knowingly. That's another level of spiritual awareness and being. So moving away from that a little bit now, just because I'm looking at the time and I want to keep these to 15 to 20 minutes tops. Premonitions. This gets into a very funny area for some spiritualists. Not me, but you will hear many different things. From the time I was 3.5, 4 years old, I've had premonitions, whether to do with my own life, other people's lives, or world events. And I mean world events, from the weather to some political and war scenarios. That doesn't mean I get everything. I don't. But I know that if you are sitting with spirit and you are in a daily practice of prayer and meditation of some sort, and you are making efforts every day to work more from a spiritual perspective as opposed to the humanist perspective, certainly you are charging your spirit, mind, and body. And it will be very much made aware to you through dream state. And you will start to have dreams that will come true in every single detail. No, you are not the ones that make the dream happen. It's already in motion. All you're doing is more or less you're kind of opening a book and reading ahead in the chapter, right? But you've missed the first 5 pages of that chapter, but you've gone ahead and you've had a sneak peek. That's more or less what's happening. You're already, in other words, you're in the flow, and you're just getting a visual that's further ahead. Psychic dreams will always be remembered by you in every detail. You will never forget them. They live in your spirit. They live in the storehouse of your spirit mind. People will talk about the Akashic records, and I don't want to get into that language because it's it can get very construed, and it can get very people feel important when they use words like that. And we're not here about feeling important. We're here talking about experiences. And in a way, hopefully some of these videos will help you to find a little bit of your way and confidence in what's come to you and the way it works with you, right? Because that's important to honor. You will always remember the feeling of the dreams, 100%. Because feeling is the language of God. And I'm not talking about personal feeling. I'm not talking about how other people make you feel. That's, again, getting into a very human, kind of social, narcissistic relationships, that go on. Oh, so and so makes me feel this way, I don't like them. Okay, and that's valid, but that's not what we're talking about. The feeling I'm talking about is absolutely pure. And what I mean by pure is there's never a feeling that it's caused by you. It's direct. It's completely clean. There's no nefarious feeling from within you that somehow it's been construed. It'll be completely dialed, what I like to call dialed in. There'll be no question. And also the images will be completely clear. And you could probably say, oh, on this day at this time, this is going to happen. It can be that clear. I've had that many a time. From the death of my mother when I was 8 years old, and she died when I was in grade 10, and in the dream, it all happened. I was in a school. I was taken out of the school. I walked into the car. As I walked into the car, my aunt was sitting in front of me. My sister was to my left. My father was in the driver's seat. The sun was low in the sky, which told me it was winter or close to winter. And the next thing we knew, we were driving along the edge of the Georgia Strait, which is a body of water here just off the coast of Vancouver and Vancouver Island. And in the water, when I looked down, I could see my mother's grave. Now, I was 8 at the time. Pardon me, I was 8 at the time. And I knew when I woke up that my mother would die and the day would be sunny. I would be at a school that I had never seen before, and I would be in grade 10. And my mother's grave would be in the Georgia Strait. Well, unknown to me, because my parents were much older and came from the era where, you never told your children anything of importance, money or otherwise. It was never discussed. Her last wish was to have her ashes thrown into the Georgia Strait. I never knew that until after she died. So, and I've had many premonitions of world events. The first Iraq War was very clear. I'll talk about that another day. 9/11. That happened while I was cooking the night before it happened, and I was suddenly just overwhelmed with tears. And it was about 7 o'clock, 6:30 again, September, right? Sun going down, beautiful sunny day in Vancouver. We had a terrible summer that year, and late August, September were just beautiful. And I was overwhelmed and just cried for 45 minutes. And while I was sitting there crying, I heard very clearly, "Pray for all those who die in fear, loneliness, and terror." And the next morning, as I was leaving for school, CBC radio came on. That's when I used to listen to CBC. And the first news report at 7 o'clock in the morning, because that's when it came on, was about the Twin Towers. And the very first thing the announcer said, who was covering the story, was, "We know and we can see that people are in those buildings and they're in fear, loneliness, and terror." She used the exact 3 words in the exact order that I had received them. Now, it wasn't one in dream state, but it came to me in a waking state when I was doing something. As you know, this happens. that didn't require a lot of thought. I was just cooking, and it was a beautiful day, and I was very peaceful, and I was very much in an altered state, shall we say, an alpha state. And suddenly, it just came upon me. So we'll talk about premonitions more as we go along, and spirit communication and how it can come to you. But I do say to everybody, for anyone out there who says, well, I don't know if I'm a healer, I'm not this, I'm not that, I've never had this sort of experience. I want people to be well, but I just don't know what to do, and I'm shy, and I'm this, and you're feeling awkward about it. Just know that every thought that you think, both good and bad, goes out into the universe. That divine power that we call God hears all and knows all and sees all. And so for yourself, just gradually discipline your mind to slowly, because it doesn't happen overnight, to slowly decide that your thoughts are going to be for, you know what, I might be ticked off with the person that just yelled at me across the counter, and I might be mad about that for a while. But darn it, I'm going to ask somehow from the spirit world that healing and some contentment and peace will come to them and me. And maybe the next time we meet, we have a different type of meeting. That is healing. Of course it is. What else is it? It's a different vibration. Takes you out of your egocentric self, which we all have to deal with, and which we need in physical form to some degree. But we can also curb it, and we can polish it, and we can brighten it up a bit and make each day a little better for each other. So thank you very much for listening and tuning in. There's more to come. Yes, there is definitely a radio show coming that I want to do, and readings, etc., and healings, of course.